For decades, an unstoppable army of 2 million wild boars ravaged the landscape, causing billions in damage. The farmers were losing the war.
They're very destructive. If I looked at it on average, I could lose up to 10% of my grain crop.
Then, a revolution began in the brush. In shock, the world watched as Texas farmers built a genius trap that outsmarted nature's perfect survivor. This is the story of the high-tech battle to reclaim the land from the invasive species known as the rototillers from hell. The pink plague. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the Texas brush usually vibrates with life. For most of the world, this hour belongs to the deep sleep of the dead of night. But in the dense cover of the Texas dark, a different world is just waking up. One that leaves the economy drained and the farmers frustrated. They emerge from the shadows as a sounder, a highly organized family unit. Forget the domestic pigs of storybooks. These are feral hogs, hundreds of pounds of muscle and razor-sharp tusks. The matriarch pauses at the tree line. Her eyesight may be poor, but in the dark, her nose acts as radar and her hearing as sonar. She knows the farmer is asleep, and she knows the field is hers. Once she deems the area safe, the herd descends with a force that has earned them the nickname rototillers from hell. They don't just graze, they excavate. They tear up the soil to get to the roots, ripping out crops and destroying irrigation lines in the process. Within minutes, the field is ruined. But they spook easily. One snapped twig, and they scatter back into the woods. They disappear as fast as they arrived, leaving the farmer to deal with the aftermath. By morning, the field looks like a wasteland. This is a massive problem. Texas is home to over 2 million wild pigs, covering almost every county in the state. They destroy crops, kill livestock, and cost farmers $500 million a year. And this calls for immediate attention. Traditional hunting isn't working. These animals are smart. They operate at night, and they reproduce too quickly. To win this fight, farmers have to stop chasing the enemy. They have to outsmart it. But to do this, they must understand the enemy's origin. To understand the enemy, one must understand that this ecological disaster was not an act of nature, but a product of human history. The origins of the feral hog problem date back to the 1500s, with the arrival of Spanish explorers like Hernando de Soto. To these early expeditions, pigs were not viewed as pests, but as a mobile food supply. Hardier than cattle and capable of foraging for themselves, domestic pigs were brought along and often left behind, or allowed to roam freely by settlers in the 1700s and 1800s. For generations, these animals existed in the wild, establishing a sturdy population of feral farm pigs that adapted to the Texas landscape. However, the creature that terrorizes modern farmers is different from those early escapees. The transformation began in the early 20th century with a deliberate choice. Wealthy American sportsmen, bored with hunting native game, sought a more aggressive and exotic challenge. They looked to Europe, specifically Germany and Russia, and began importing pure-strain Eurasian wild boars. Men like Austin Corbin in New Hampshire and Leroy G. Denman Sr. in Texas established private, high-fenced hunting preserves, releasing these formidable beasts for sport. The intent was to contain them within exclusive clubs, but nature proved difficult to fence. Through severe weather, floods, and simple degradation, the enclosures failed. The Eurasian boars escaped into the wild, where they encountered the existing populations of feral domestic pigs. What followed was a genetic collision that created a biological nightmare. The two distinct lineages interbred, producing a hybrid that possessed the most advantageous traits of both ancestors. From the domestic pig, this new creature inherited massive size and high fertility. From the Eurasian boar, it gained coarse fur, razor-sharp tusks, and a survival instinct honed by centuries of avoiding wolves and bears in European forests. Biologists call this hybrid vigor. The result is an animal with the intelligence to evade traps, the aggression to defend itself, and the reproductive capacity to outpace almost any attempt at population control. A single sow can begin breeding at just a few months old, producing 2 large litters a year. This biological advantage was compounded by human interference. In the 1980s, the population exploded, not just through natural migration, but through the actions of hunters who illegally trapped and relocated hogs to new areas to establish local hunting grounds. What was intended to create sport instead seeded an infestation. Texas became the epicenter of this expansion. Today, the state is home to a creature that is a super pig in all but name, an adaptable, intelligent omnivore that has conquered the landscape from the piney woods to the arid brush. The feral hog has evolved from a farm animal into a continental threat, serving as a grim reminder that the most dangerous invasive species in Texas history was, in fact, invited in. The feral hog is not merely a farm animal gone rogue. It is a biological machine engineered for survival and destruction. Its dominance in Texas is built on 3 pillars: a specialized anatomy, an explosive reproductive cycle, and a terrifyingly high intelligence. To the casual observer, the snout looks like a simple nose. In reality, it is a biological bulldozer. The tip is a flattened, hairless disc known as the rhinarial pad, packed with nerve endings. This pad lets the hog locate roots and tubers up to 3 feet underground. It compensates for their poor eyesight, serving as a sensitive probe in the darkness. But sensitivity is backed by brute force. Unlike other mammals, the pig's snout is reinforced by a unique bone called the os rostrale, or prenasal bone. Located within the nasal septum, this prism-shaped bone acts as a skeletal anchor, allowing the animal to apply tremendous force without injury. When a hog roots, it isn't just sniffing. It is using a bone-reinforced shovel to overturn hard-packed earth, effectively bulldozing through pastures and irrigation lines. If the snout makes them destructive, their reproductive cycle makes them unstoppable. Biologists call this the pig bomb. The theory is simple but devastating. Feral hogs reproduce at an exponential rate that outpaces almost any predator or control method. A sow can reach sexual maturity as early as 3 to 5 months of age. If conditions are favorable, which they often are in the warm, food-rich Texas climate, she can produce 2 litters a year, with each litter containing anywhere from 4 to 12 piglets. The mathematics of this fertility are grim. Piglets have high survival rates, and sounders expand rapidly. For a feral hog population to simply remain stable, meaning 0 growth, hunters and trappers must eliminate over 70% of the total population every single year. Anything less than that, and the numbers continue to climb. This bomb is further accelerated by human transport, as illegal relocation acts as a detonator, seeding new populations in areas that might have otherwise remained safe. But the hog's most dangerous weapon is its mind. These are highly intelligent creatures, consistently ranking among the smartest brutes on the planet. Studies suggest their cognitive abilities are comparable to those of a 3-year-old human child. They possess excellent long-term memory and spatial awareness. If a sounder encounters a trap, they learn from the experience. If they find a reliable food source, they remember the location. Their intelligence is social and tactical. They have been observed using deception to manipulate other pigs for food and displaying empathy by working together to free trapped companions. They can differentiate between individual humans and recognize facial features. This cognitive depth makes them incredibly difficult to hunt. They don't just react to danger, they anticipate it. They learn the schedules of farmers, avoid areas where shots have been fired, and vanish into the brush at the first sign of a threat. This combination creates the perfect invasive species. The feral hog digs like a machine, breeds like a virus, and thinks like a strategist. Against such an adversary, traditional methods of control were doomed to fail. The farmers needed something different. They needed a trap that didn't just catch a pig, but outsmarted a genius. The earth shredders. The destruction caused by feral hogs extends far beyond lost crops. They are what ecologists call ecosystem engineers, but their engineering is purely destructive. The primary mechanism of this ruin is rooting. Unlike grazing cattle, hogs overturn the soil in search of grubs and tubers, destabilizing the ground itself. This behavior destroys riverbanks, causing erosion that clouds water with sediment and introduces dangerous bacteria like E. coli, thus contaminating water sources used by livestock and humans alike. The pristine streams of the Texas Hill Country are turned turbid and toxic, rendering them unusable. Native wildlife suffers equally. Hogs outcompete deer and turkeys for food and actively prey on vulnerable species, devouring the eggs of ground-nesting birds and endangered sea turtles. They transform the environment into a landscape where only they can thrive. For the farmer, the devastation is not just ecological or financial, it is psychological. There is a specific kind of torture in waking up every morning to check the fields, never knowing if the work of months has been erased in hours. This is the heavy mental toll of the hog invasion. It is a relentless siege that breeds chronic stress and a profound sense of helplessness. Farmers endure chronic anxiety, planting crops they know may never reach harvest, the exhaustion of futile 2 a.m. patrols, and the trauma of watching their legacy be uprooted night after night takes an immeasurable toll. They are fighting a war they cannot win with bullets alone. For decades, the primary response to the hog invasion was simple: hunt them down. Yet, traditional hunting has proven to be a dangerous illusion of victory. Recreational hunters, utilizing methods like spot and stalk or hunting with dogs, might feel effective after a successful night, but the mathematics of the plague are unforgiving. To simply stabilize the population, not reduce it, but just keep it from growing, landowners must eliminate over 70% of the herd every single year. Traditional methods rarely scratch the surface of this number, removing only a fraction of the animals while the survivors continue to breed. In 2011, the state escalated the conflict by legalizing the pork chopper, a bill allowing hunters to shoot feral hogs from low-flying helicopters. It was marketed as a high-efficiency depredation program, where paying customers used semi-automatic rifles to target sounders in remote terrain. While the method proved viral and effective at killing individual groups quickly, it carried a critical strategic flaw. The deafening roar of the rotors didn't just kill pigs, it scattered them. Sounders would panic and disperse into the dense Texas brush, where aerial shooters could not follow. Often, this turned one concentrated problem on a single farm into 10 smaller problems spread across neighboring properties. The most severe consequence of these failed wars, however, is not the pigs that die, but the pigs that survive. Biologists call this education. Feral hogs are highly intelligent social learners with excellent memories. When a hunter shoots 5 pigs out of a sounder of 30, they haven't solved the problem. They have created 25 genius pigs who now understand exactly what a gunshot sounds like. These survivors learn rapidly. They associate human scent, vehicle sounds, and specific locations with danger. Almost immediately, they shift their behavior, becoming exclusively nocturnal to evade the daytime threat. They develop trap aversion, refusing to enter enclosures or learning to trigger them without being caught. By failing to remove the entire sounder at once, traditional hunting essentially acts as a training ground, breeding a generation of hyper-aware, trap-shy animals that are exponentially harder to remove than their predecessors. To combat these evasive survivors, farmers turned to the box trap. It is a simple tool, a 4 by 8 foot rigid enclosure of heavy-gauge wire mesh welded to a steel frame. Portable enough to slide into a pickup truck, it relies on a basic trigger, a tripwire or root stick, that drops a guillotine door once a hog steps inside to eat the bait. However, the box trap possesses a fatal flaw, one that the hogs exploit with ease. The defense against it comes from the sounder's leader, the alpha sow. She is the matriarch, the oldest and wisest female who dictates every movement of the group. When she approaches a box trap, her survival instincts trigger what behaviorists call threshold fear. Wild hogs possess an innate aversion to entering small, enclosed spaces or stepping over foreign objects like the metal bottom bar of a trap frame. The alpha sow perceives the box not as a food source, but as a confinement. She refuses to cross the threshold, pacing nervously outside. Her hesitation acts as a command. The rest of the sounder waits. While a naive juvenile might wander in and get caught, the reproductive core of the group, the sow and her other offspring, remains free. The farmer catches one pig, but the matriarch leads the rest away, educated and more elusive than before. The humans believe they are trapping pests, but in reality, they are being outsmarted. The genesis of genius. The failure of the pork chopper and the limitations of the box trap forced a fundamental reevaluation of the war against feral hogs. For years, the approach had been tactical: shoot the pig you see. But the farmers began to realize that they shouldn't be thinking like hunters. They needed to think like military strategists. The objective shifted from kill as many as you can to kill them all at once. The mathematics of the problem dictated the solution. If leaving a single pregnant sow alive meant the population would rebound within a year, then the only viable victory was 100% removal of the sounder. To achieve this, the industry had to abandon the ground and look to the sky. The result was the suspended corral trap, often referred to as the genius trap. Unlike traditional corral traps, which rely on permanent panels and T-posts driven into the earth, this new system is defined by what it lacks: a threshold. The physical design addresses the primary psychological defense of the feral hog. A standard trap forces a pig to cross a barrier, to step over a metal bar, or squeeze through a narrow gate. This triggers the innate caution of the alpha sow. The suspended trap, however, consists of a large, circular metal enclosure, typically 18 to 23 feet in diameter, that hangs several feet in the air. It is suspended by a central mast, utilizing a system of winches and cables. To the hog, there is no trap. There are no walls to navigate, no gates to squeeze through, and crucially, no metal bars on the ground to step over. The environment looks exactly as it did before the trap arrived, save for the shadow cast by the ring hovering above. This design renders the alpha sow's threshold fear obsolete. She can lead her sounder directly to the bait without her survival instincts signaling confinement. The trap does not rely on the animal making a mistake. It relies on the animal feeling completely safe. The physical machinery of the suspended trap is only half of the solution. The other half is cellular warfare. In the past, trapping was a labor-intensive, miserable endeavor requiring farmers to sit in freezing blinds for hours or check manual traps every morning, often finding them empty. The new paradigm integrates high-definition, low-light camera systems directly into the trap's architecture. Connected to the world via 4G and 5G cellular networks, the modern battlefield is viewed not through a rifle scope, but through a smartphone screen. This technology transforms the farmer from a participant into an observer. This phase of the operation is known as intelligence gathering. Before a single trap is dropped, the farmer enters the spy phase. The camera provides a live stream of the trap site, allowing for a detailed analysis of the enemy. The farmer counts the sounder, ensuring every member is present. They identify the targets, the nursing piglets, the juveniles, and most importantly, the alpha sow. By observing their patterns over days or weeks, the farmer learns their schedule, when they arrive, how they feed, and the order in which they enter the circle. This surveillance eliminates the guesswork. The farmer knows exactly who is coming to dinner and exactly when to close the door. With the trap in place and the cameras rolling, the operation moves to the psychological phase. Conditioning. This is a long con, a game of patience designed to override the hog's natural wariness with the comfort of routine. It is a process of free feeding that can take weeks, where the goal is not to catch a pig, but to train a sounder. The timeline is methodical. In week 1, the trap hangs high, at least 3 feet off the ground. The farmers scatter corn underneath it. The pigs arrive, initially cautious of the structure overhead. However, because the ground is open and clear, the alpha sow eventually deems it safe. They feed freely, entering and exiting the zone without restriction. By week 2, the conditioning deepens. The hogs are now regulars. They associate the spot with easy, high-calorie food. They spend more time under the suspended ring, their guard dropping with every successful meal. The farmer watches on his phone, counting heads, resisting the urge to trigger the trap. The discipline is critical. Dropping the trap too early, when only half the sounder is present, would be a catastrophic strategic failure. It would educate the survivors and ruin the site for months. In week 3, the trap is often lowered slightly, reducing the clearance. The pigs, now fully acclimated, barely notice the change. They have been tricked into a false sense of security. The alpha sow, the guardian of the group, has been deceived into believing this is a sanctuary. She leads her family into the center of the circle night after night, unaware that she has walked them into a prison that hasn't closed yet. This is the psychological victory that precedes the physical one. The farmer has used the pig's own intelligence against them. By removing the physical barriers and establishing a routine of safety, the suspended trap system turns the sounder's survival instincts off. The whole sounder is now gathered under the suspended steel. They are fed, comfortable, and oblivious to the farmer whose finger is hovering over the drop button on his phone screen. The new order. The deployment of the suspended trap on a single farm was a tactical victory. But the farmers soon realized that in a war against an enemy that moves across miles of terrain in a single night, a solitary fortress is not enough. A sounder eliminated on one property does not stop a different sounder from crossing the fence line from a neighbor's land the following week. To truly reclaim the state, the strategy had to evolve from individual defense to community warfare. This realization birthed the concept of the war room. This is not a physical bunker filled with generals. It is a decentralized, high-tech network that connects landowners, wildlife officials, and pest control experts across county lines. It operates on the understanding that feral hogs do not respect property boundaries. A farmer acting alone is simply displacing the problem. A community acting together is solving it. The operational backbone of this network is the grid system. In the past, a farmer might have kept his trapping data secret, but the war room relies on transparency and rapid communication. It functions through a web of digital surveillance and real-time data sharing. When a sounder is spotted on a trail camera at Farm A, but evades capture, the landowner doesn't just go back to sleep. He alerts the network that the group is moving in their direction. This coordination allows for an all-encompassing eradication on a massive scale. Neighbors coordinate their baiting schedules, ensuring that food sources are synchronized to maximize the number of hogs caught. They track the movement of specific sounders as they migrate through the grid, waiting for the animals to settle in a location where a suspended trap is deployed and ready. The farmer sitting in his kitchen monitoring a live feed is no longer just watching his own farm. He is the eyes for the entire county. For the most elusive sounders, those that have learned to avoid even the most subtle traps, the war room deploys its most sophisticated and ruthless weapon, the Judas pig. This technique represents the pinnacle of using the animal's own biology against it. In this scenario, professional managers capture a single feral hog, usually a young female or gilt, and fit it with a GPS tracking collar or a radio transmitter. It is then released back into the wild. Because hogs are inherently social animals with a desperate need for belonging, this lone hog will actively seek out other pigs. It becomes a living beacon, leading the exterminators directly to the hidden populations that human eyes might never find. The Judas pig betrays her own kind. It integrates into a new sounder, and its GPS signal appears on the screens of the war room. Managers track the group to their bedding area or feeding ground. Once the location is pinpointed, a trapping team moves in, or a suspended trap is erected at that specific site. After the sounder is removed, the Judas pig is released again to find the next group. It is a cold, calculated method that turns the hog's social intelligence into their greatest vulnerability. The shift from chaotic hunting to strategic, networked trapping is not just a change in style. It is a revolution backed by hard data. For decades, the effectiveness of hog control was based on anecdotes and best guesses. Now, institutions like the Noble Research Institute have quantified the difference, and the numbers are staggering. Under the old regime of traditional hunting and ground-level corral traps, the capture rates were abysmal. Conventional corral traps, limited by the hog's fear of entering narrow gates or crossing thresholds, averaged a capture rate of only 48.5% of a local population. This meant that half the sounder often walked away, educated and harder to catch next time. Traditional hunting and aerial gunning fared even worse in the long term, often failing to make a dent in the reproductive capacity of the herd. The suspended trap changed the math entirely. Scientific studies confirmed that these systems, which eliminate threshold fear and utilize remote deployment, achieve an average removal rate of 88.1%. In many cases, skilled operators achieve 100% removal of targeted sounders. The efficiency metrics are equally damning for the old methods. Research indicates that removing a single pig via traditional corral trapping requires approximately 2.3 person-hours of labor. With the suspended trap system, that effort drops to 0.64 person-hours. The technology allows a single person to manage multiple traps across thousands of acres without ever leaving their desk, only driving out to the field when the trap is full. These statistics are critical because of the 70% rule. Biologists have determined that to simply stabilize the feral hog population, landowners must remove at least 70% of the total population every single year. Anything less is a loss. Traditional methods made this target mathematically impossible to hit. The suspended trap network has finally made it achievable. The result is a new order in the Texas brush. The chaos of the pork chopper era and the frustration of the box trap have been replaced by a silent, coordinated machine. The pigs are still out there, hiding in the green dark. But they are no longer facing a scattered collection of farmers with rifles. They are facing a unified grid, a network of eyes, and a trap that falls from the sky without warning. Once the suspended trap drops, the focus shifts from capture to disposal. The fate of the trapped hogs is strictly regulated by the Texas Animal Health Commission, TAHC, with paths diverging based on the trapper's resources and goals. For many landowners, the priority is immediate population control. In these cases, euthanasia is performed on-site using firearms, following veterinary guidelines for a humane end. The carcasses are typically buried to prevent disease spread or, in remote areas, left to decompose naturally, returning nutrients to the ecosystem they once ravaged. However, an industry has risen to turn this invasive liability into an economic asset. Because feral hogs are classified as an exotic species, they can be sold commercially. This process is tightly controlled to prevent the pig bomb from reigniting through accidental release. It is illegal to transport live hogs without specific authorization. Instead, trapped animals are taken to state-approved holding stations and then to USDA-inspected slaughter facilities. Here, the rototiller from hell undergoes a rebranding. The meat is processed and sold as wild boar to high-end restaurants and specialty grocers like Whole Foods. Much of it is exported to Europe, where wild boar is considered a traditional delicacy. Companies like Broken Arrow Ranch have pioneered this market, ensuring the meat is safe for consumption by cooking it to 165 degrees Fahrenheit to eliminate parasites. While this commercialization offers a silver lining, the primary mission remains eradication, ensuring that the ancient war between the Texas farmer and the wild hog finally tilts in favor of the human. Despite the success of the suspended trap and the grid networks, the farmers have not yet won the war. However, for the first time in nearly half a century, they have stopped losing it. The exponential curve of the feral hog population, which once looked like a vertical line of destruction, has finally been flattened. The chaos of reactive hunting has been replaced by the precision of proactive management. The next phase of this conflict lies in artificial intelligence. The strategy is shifting from simply watching the pigs to predicting them. Enhanced monitoring systems now utilize drones equipped with thermal imaging to survey vast acreages day and night. AI algorithms process thousands of video frames in minutes, counting populations with a speed and accuracy no human can match. Predictive modeling analyzes historical data to forecast migration routes and high-risk areas, allowing managers to intercept sounders before they even breach the fence line. The traps themselves are evolving into autonomous systems. Developers are testing AI-triggered traps that eliminate the need for a human decision-maker. These smart systems analyze real-time footage, automatically identifying the species and triggering the gate closure only when the entire sounder is confirmed inside the enclosure. The feral hog remains nature's perfect survivor, adaptable, intelligent, and relentless. But human ingenuity, driven by the genius trap and amplified by data, has finally caught up. The war continues in the deep Texas brush, but the balance of power has shifted. The humans now have the upper hand. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.